In this question, you will be asked to give your opinion about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response and 45 seconds to speak. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Students benefit more from classes with a large number of students than they do from smaller classes. Use specific examples and details to support your opinion.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In this question, you will read a short passage about a campus situation and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. A student has written a letter to the student newspaper. You have 50 seconds to read the letter. Begin reading now. Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
I don't like his proposal.
Why not? There are never many students in there.
But that's what I like about it, that it's never crowded.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a great place to study. I go there a lot. I'll read a book or bring my laptop computer and work on a paper for class. It's never very noisy.
You're able to get work done there?
Absolutely. In fact, I actually prefer it to the library as a place to study. And a lot of other students do too. We even study for our final exams there. And you can eat there while you work, something you can't do at the library.
Okay, but you don't actually like the food there, do you? I mean, he said...
Well, I don't think he's been there recently. I mean, it's true that it wasn't that great in the past, but I think it's a lot better now.
What's changed?
They have a new manager, and I guess she's made some improvements in the quality of the food. I was there last week, and the food was delicious.
Really?
Yeah, really. And the new manager has also added a lot of really healthful foods and snacks, so the food doesn't just taste good now, it's good for you too.
I'll have to try the place.
The woman expresses her opinion about the student's proposal. State her opinion and explain the reasons she gives for holding that opinion.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In this question, you will read a short passage on an academic subject and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Read the passage from an environmental science textbook. You will have 45 seconds to read the passage. Begin reading now. Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in an environmental science class.
So, one example of this is the macaw, the great green macaw. Now, the great green macaw is a beautiful bird, a fairly large-sized parrot known for its colorful feathers, gorgeous green feathers with some red and blue feathers too. The macaw lives in the South American rainforest, in a part of the rainforest where a lot of trees had been cut down, trees that the macaw relies on for its food and nesting. So, the macaw was in trouble. And, of course, along with the trees, a lot of other animals were in trouble too. Lots of birds, bats, and frogs also lived in these trees. So, when the trees were cut down and cleared away, these animals also didn't have a place to live anymore, and their populations drastically declined. So, what a concerned group of people in the area did was they started spreading the word about how the macaw, this really beautiful bird, needed help. They made little books with information about the macaw, with pictures, full-colored pictures of the macaw that showed off its beautiful feathers. And they passed out these little books, these informational brochures. They distributed them to people in schools and community centers in the area. And a lot of people responded. They contributed money and helped the group set up some protected land, a special area where no one could cut down the trees, so the macaw would be safe. And the macaw's population started to increase, and other birds and bats and frogs came back to the area too. Their numbers increased along with the trees.
Using the example of the macaw from the lecture, explain the concept of a flagship species.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In this question, you will listen to a short lecture. You will then be asked to summarize important information from the lecture. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Listen to part of a lecture in a literature class.
Authors of fiction, short stories and novels, of course have many decisions to make when they are writing their works. One of those decisions is how they are going to narrate or tell the story, what perspective or what point of view the story will be told from. So authors need to choose a type of narrator, some person or voice to tell the story, and this narrator can affect the reader's experience when they read a story. Now, the author might choose to have an objective narrator. An objective narrator can describe what people, the characters in a story, what they do and what they say, but that's about all. So, suppose we have a story, for example, that is about a man and woman about to take a trip. When a story is told by an objective narrator, the only information that we get as readers is what the characters say to each other, what they do. They get on the train, they sit down, they look out the window, that's all. And this leaves questions that force the reader to interpret the events, to fill in information, and decide what the character's conversation and actions might mean. Another kind of narrator an author might use is an omniscient narrator. In this case, the narrator, the voice that is telling the story, knows everything, and I mean everything about the characters. So let's imagine our same man and woman traveling, but described by an omniscient narrator. Not only do we, the readers, know what they do and say, but we also know what they're thinking. For example, we are told that the couple is going to visit an old friend of the man's, and we learn what the man is thinking, that he is nervous because he hasn't seen his friend in a long time, that he is worried if his wife will like the friend. So an omniscient narrator provides more information and answers questions that the reader might have about the characters or the action.
Using the examples from the lecture, discuss two types of narrators that an author of fiction might use.
Please prepare your answer after the beep. Please begin speaking after the beep.
In my opinion, students benefit a lot more from smaller classes, and that's because of two reasons. First of all, I think that when you are in a small class, you can have a closer relationship with the teacher. For example, in my English class, there were usually 10 students, and it was really good because the teacher knew everyone's names, and we had the chance to ask questions and interact a lot during the classes. Also, the second reason is because you feel more comfortable to ask questions. And in a huge class, you might not feel comfortable or you might not have the opportunity to ask a question when you want to. That's why I think so.
I disagree with the idea that students benefit from classes with a large number of people, and I feel this way for several reasons. To begin with, people in small classes are able to ask their teachers more questions, and therefore teachers will have more time to explain a subject that students do not understand. And secondly, if there are less people in a room, then they will not get distracted by any occasional small talks or unnecessary noises, and they will have more motivation to study. And this is basically why I believe that people benefit more from small classes.
According to the reading passage, the university should close the campus coffee house, and that's because students don't really go there very often and because the food there is not good. The woman disagrees with this and she gives two reasons to justify. First reason, she says that the coffee house not being crowded is actually a good thing because then she can study there. And she also explains her idea by giving the example that she's not the only student that prefers to study there than in the library, but lots of students study there because they can study and eat at the same time, and in the library they cannot do it. The second reason is that the food used to be bad, but now it has improved because a new manager has taken care of the quality of the food and also added healthy foods and snacks. So those are the two reasons that she gives to explain her opinion.
According to the letter, the student proposes the university to close the campus coffee house. The woman opposes this idea for several reasons. First of all, she mentions that a coffee house is never crowded, and that's why she likes it. She also mentions that this is a great place to study, to read a book, or use your laptop. And she also prefers it to the library, just like many other students, and she even prepares there for final exams. And she can also eat and work there at the same time. She also mentions that earlier the food wasn't that great, but nowadays the coffee house has a new manager, and now the food is pretty good and quality is also high. So these are the reasons why the woman opposes this change.
The reading states that flagship species is a particular species that represents the whole threatened habitat to people and the public in general. The professor gives an example to illustrate this concept by talking about the macaw birds, which is a species of birds that live in South America in the rainforest. Those species had some problem when the trees they used for food and nesting were cut down and their population declined. To solve this problem, people started to spread the word with books, with photos and information about what was happening with the macaw. They did it in school and in the community centers in the area, and it actually worked because people not only contributed with money, but they also helped the group and tried to save the birds. And after that, the macaw population started to increase.
The reading is about flagship species, and it states that some endangered species are used to direct attention to the protection of the environment. The professor elaborates on this by providing an example of the great green macaw, which is a beautiful bird that has gorgeous green and blue feathers. Great green macaw live in rainforests along with other species, but Nowadays, a lot of trees are cut down in the rainforests and their natural habitat is destroyed, and therefore macaws population has declined. However, many people started to talk about the macaw and other endangered species, and they distributed among the population colorful books with pictures of the macaw, and many people really wanted to help the macaw and other species to return their habitat, and they even donated money, and nowadays their population is rising again.
In the lecture, the professor explains that fiction writers have many decisions to make, including how they're gonna tell their story. To solve this, they have two possible types of narrator, which the first one is objective narrator, the one that just describes what the characters do or say. For example, a man and a woman are about to take a trip, and the narrator would say they get on the train, they sit down, so nothing else. On the other hand, the omniscient narrator knows it all. Using the same situation, a couple is about to take a trip, and this narrator would say that the man is worried because he's gonna visit an old friend and he doesn't know if his wife is gonna like this friend. So the omniscient narrator gives more information and answers the questions that the reader might have.
The lecturer explains different points of view in a history by providing two examples. First of all, he mentions an objective narrator, and an objective narrator knows only about what people are intended to do and say in a story. Let's say there is a story about a man and a woman, and they're planning to go on a trip. The objective narrator can tell us only about what they're going to say and do, but nothing more. But there is a second type called an omniscient narrator, and he knows everything about the characters. For instance, if this man and woman they are going to a trip want to visit a friend, then the omniscient narrator can tell us about what the man is feeling, and he's feeling kind of nervous because he didn't see his friend for a long time.